Cyril began complaining to a work colleague who had the misfortune to arrive at the bus station at the same time as him. Luckily, she'd been issued recently with a hearing aid, so could emphasise that she did not hear him very well. She wasn't in the least bit interested, indeed not just in the subject matter, but in having a conversation with him at all. The working day had been long enough without having to spend time outside of work listening to his opinionated views. Decision taken, she quickly murmured her excuses, making off in the direction of St. Enoch's train station. Somewhat puzzled at her abrupt departure, Cyril watched her walking away from him with dismay as she disappeared under the canopy of the train station. Some people, he thought, 1 minute interested and the next cut you off mid-sentence. Still, she had a good figure for a woman of her age, he murmured. What did you say? Asked the woman standing behind him. Nothing at all. Luckily, the bus that pulled in next took this annoying woman away, leaving him feeling as though he was in the wrong. He resolved not to let this put him in a bad mood. This, however, changed with the announcement from the bus station Tannoy that the number 89 bus was running late. As with everything, Cyril reacted to this as if it was personal. He explained. Looking around, he saw that the queue was diminished. Indeed, no one was standing near him, so he wondered if it might be wiser to go by train. But then he considered the disadvantage with the train was the distance from the station to his house, whereas the bus stopped just along the road. Luckily, it was a warm summer evening, but he was irritated, feeling everything was conspiring against him. Eventually, he saw the 89 approach the bus station. Hurriedly, he climbed on board, only to face with dismay when he saw there were no empty seats. Consequently, he'd had to stand. After what felt like an eternity, Cyril saw a seat was freed up, so he threw himself down beside a rather plump but friendly-faced woman. Assuming she would be glad of his conversation, he started on one of his favourite topics. When she yawned, he looked away, thinking how rude she was not to cover her mouth. Really, some people. He spent the remainder of the journey home anticipating the lovely meal his wife of almost 25 years would undoubtedly be preparing for his arrival. Maisie was a great cook. He was very fortunate. She'd always carried out her wifely duties. On that point, he had little to complain about, apart from in the bedroom. Once it was clear she could not conceive, she ignored his overtures. From what he had overheard in the company washroom, many husbands had that cross to bear. Soon he was putting his key in the door lock, opened the front door, entered, removed his jacket, and found a vacant hook on the hall stand. He looked in the mirror, smoothing his comb-over down, then went into the dining room. Once again, in the space of a couple of hours, he was puzzled. The table wasn't set for dinner. Worse still, Maisie wasn't in the kitchen. The pots and pans sat on the stand. None were filled with vegetables and sitting on the stove, as he'd expected. Where was Maisie? What was she playing at? She's always here, always providing a tasty meal, and he was always obliging when it came to drying the dishes. He looked in the sitting room. It was empty. The fire wasn't even lit. Then he went to the foot of the stairs and called out his Maisie! 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 Silence was the only response. Unsure what to expect, he climbed up to their bedroom and tentatively pushed the bedroom door open. All trace of caring disappeared from his voice as he yelled, "What the hell is going on here?" Taking one step into the room, he looked around aghast as he surveyed the many items of clothing strewn across the bed, over the dressing table and the stool. And much to his horror, his suits lay where they had fallen on the floor. "Oh my God, we've been burgled. And that's my best suit lying on the floor. How has this happened? Where are you, Maisie?" He tiptoed through the piles of clothing, dreading the thought of finding Maisie injured and lying on the floor on the other side of the bed. His heart raced and beads of sweat formed on his brow as, terrified, he looked. But there was only more clothes. Socks, underwear, pant, vests and long johns, winter and summer, scattered all over so much rubbish. Who would do such a thing? Where could Maisie be? She must be around somewhere. What has happened to her? He continued to search from room to room, calling her name. Maisie! Maisie! Rushing downstairs, he picked up the telephone and dialed 999. Soon the police arrived and searched the house thoroughly. They even went into the garden shed. A senior officer entered the kitchen where Cyril sat with a steaming cup of tea in front of him and a plate of ginger snaps beside him. The officer shrugged as he noted the crumbs from the biscuits clung to the man's lips. Becoming aware of the police officer looking at him, Cyril licked his lips and explained, "I'm starving. I usually have my dinner about now." "Sir," the officer addressed Cyril, "I understand you've been upstairs and entered your bedroom." "Well, yes, of course, I was looking for Maisie. But she wasn't there, just piles of clothing tossed about. Did you notice, sir, that only your clothing is in that room?" "But how?" Cyril was flabbergasted. "Oh, please God, they haven't kidnapped Maisie." "No, sir. It would appear that your wife has packed her bags and left." "Do you not see the note lying on the pillow?" Cyril darted out of the room and up the stairs. He arrived in their bedroom. This time, he noted that 2 suitcases that usually sat on the top of the double wardrobe were missing. Glaring at the bed, his eyes alighted on a piece of pink writing paper sitting on the pillow, secured by a safety pin. Was that really there before? Tentatively, he unpinned the note, took it to the dressing table, stool, sat down and read it. It was addressed to him in Maisie's distinctive handwriting. He'd never noticed how admirable her writing was until now. "Cyril, you won't understand, but you have been the worst husband in the world. I am sick and tired of picking up after you. You have always praised my cooking, my stews, my puddings, but in all these years you have never once offered to make me so much as a cup of tea. I'm sick of the back teeth of listening to your opinions in every subject under the sun, while you don't even show a halfpenny worth of interest in my point of view. As long as your suits are taken and collected from the cleaners and your shirts perfectly ironed. You have squashed the very joy out of my life. Maybe it would have been different if we'd had children, but foolishly, to console myself, I made the mistake of babying you, putting all my love and devotion into caring for you until I realised that you hadn't even noticed. Well, I won't be here to pick up your clothes, but I'm sure you'll find somebody to do it for you. I took all my jewellery to the pawn shop and got a measly amount in return, but I'm not dependent on that. As you may have forgotten, the Building Society account is in both our names, so I've already removed half of our savings. The house is yours, with its motley contents, due to your meanness about replacing furniture and your utter dislike of paying for repairs to be done. It isn't worth as much as I hoped. So I have finally had enough. I am going to learn to play. I am going to have fun, how to indulge myself. The sense of relief, the sense of freedom that fills me, you will never understand. Goodbye, Maisie." Cyril looked up to complain to the officers, but they had all gone.